In the previous class, we covered the substantive provisions of the main international treaty on the rights of women, CEDAW. In this present class, we will round up our study of CEDAW by referring to the mechanisms and procedures to oversee the implementation of this convention. The CEDAW Committee is the body established by the Convention to monitor its implementation. It consists of 23 independent experts of high moral standing and competence in the field covered by CEDAW. The experts are elected by the state parties to the Convention and serve in their personal capacity. Consideration is given to equitable geographical distribution and to the representation of the different forms of civilization and legal systems. The first function of the committee is to consider progress in the implementation of CEDAW by means of reviewing the reports that each state party must periodically submit for consideration by the committee on the measures they have taken to give effect to the Convention. The committee has adopted a work method that considers a constructive dialogue with the state party representatives, the use of information from national human rights institutions, non-governmental organizations, and specialized agencies. It also issues concluding observations upon the consideration of the state parties' reports and has a follow-up procedures to its concluding observations. A second function of the committee is to formulate general recommendations addressed to all state parties to the Convention. Their aim is to guide the understanding of important provisions of the Convention. Some recommendations are brief and specific, such as General Recommendation number 18 on disabled women. Others are more comprehensive, such as General Recommendation number 24 titled Women and Health on Article 12 of CEDAW. Most state parties to CEDAW have also ratified the optional protocol to CEDAW, a complementary treaty that introduced two new important monitoring procedures. The first is a communication procedure which allows individuals or groups of individuals to complain to the Committee of States Parties for alleged violations of their Convention rights. The committee will consider a communication only if it complies with admissibility requirements, among them that the same matter has not been or is being examined under another international procedure, and that all available domestic remedies has been exhausted. If the committee declares the communication admissible, it brings it to the attention of the state party concerned. Within 6 months, the receiving state party shall submit to the committee written explanations clarifying the matter and the remedies, if any, that may have been provided. Considering the communication and its response, the committee gives its views together with its recommendations, if any, to the parties. A follow-up procedure is also considered. At any time after the receipt of the communication and before a decision on the merits has been reached, the committee may request the state to take interim measures to avoid possible irreparable damage to the victim or victims of the alleged violations. The communication procedure has produced important decisions, most notably regarding violence against women and women's right to reproductive health. Although these committee decisions are not legally binding, they are authoritative. They are being widely used by advocates in other international and domestic jurisdictions and have significantly contributed to the advancement of women's rights. Article 8 introduces the second monitoring procedure of the optional protocol to CEDAW. It makes the committee competent to conduct a confidential inquiry into reliable allegations of grave or systematic violations by a state party of the right set forth in the Convention. The committee invites the state to submit observations with regards to the information concerned and may designate one or more of the committee members to inquire and report to the committee. The inquiry may include a visit to the territory of the state party, provided that the latter consents to it. After examining the findings of the inquiry, the committee transmits them to the state party together with the comments and recommendations. The state party must submit its observations to the committee within 6 months of receiving this information, and follow-up measures are considered if needed. A good example of how different monitoring procedure and even more, how different international human rights bodies may collaborate and reinforce each other in the advancement of women's rights is provided by the case of Ciudad Juárez in Mexico. The first inquiry procedure conducted by the committee was triggered by the information provided by international and Mexican non-governmental organizations in 2002, containing the allegations of the abduction, rape, and murder of hundreds of women in Ciudad Juárez since the early 1990s. Before that, the committee had already raised questions with Mexico during the discussion of its fifth periodic report, and expressed concern of the lack of result of the investigation and the failure to bring to justice the perpetrators of such crimes. Eventually, the case known as the Cotton Field case about the murder of 3 young women in Ciudad Juárez was brought before the Inter-American System of Human Rights, and the Inter-American Court condemned Mexico for failing to apply due diligence to protect the victims once the state had information about their disappearances and also had a clear knowledge of the situation of high risk for women in Ciudad Juárez. To prove Mexico's previous knowledge of the risk of gender violence in that particular case, the court cited Mexico's observation to the report produced by the CEDAW committee under Article 8 of the optional protocol, recognizing that the homicides were influenced by a culture of discrimination against women based on the erroneous idea that women are inferior, and that such culture also influenced the fact that the murders were not perceived at the outset as a significant problem requiring immediate and forceful action on the part of the relevant authorities. In this way, the monitoring procedures of CEDAW and its optional protocol contributed to the advancement of women's rights by its incorporation into binding international human rights jurisprudence issued by an international human rights court. Thank you for watching this class. Please visit our website, mucchile.com.